Welcome to the January 27th meeting of the Anacortes City Council. I am going to ask Mr. Franciac to please take the roll.
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters. Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Thank you. I would like to excuse Mr. Walters from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Cleland McGrath, second by Mr. Fantini to excuse Mr. Walters from tonight's City Council meeting. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. So please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so I have a few announcements to make. The Anacortes Senior Activity Center has published a survey and would like to get as many respondents as possible. It's in partnership with Burke Consulting, and it's a senior needs assessment. And as we know, we have a large proportion of seniors in our community, and we want to better understand their needs and their experiences related to social programming, connection, and how we can help meet their essential needs. So the survey will be available through several formats. There will be a mailer with a QR code in our utility billing mailing. There will be flyers with that same QR code distributed at various locations in town, and there are paper copies available at key community partner locations. The survey will close on Friday, February 28th, and should only take about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. So if you're in that demographic, please think about completing the survey. You'll be doing everyone a favor. There's also a link available at the city website under news items and also on the Senior Center website. There is an upcoming community meeting about the potential public park at West 6th Street and Minnesota. The Parks and Rec Department will hold a neighborhood information and planning meeting on Thursday, January 30th, this week at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. Also coming up on Saturday, March 1st, Habitat for Humanity is building 8 homes here in Anacortes, and they're having an affordable housing orientation Saturday, March 1st at 11 a.m. at the Senior Center. They have 8 homes, and they have 2 qualified applicants so far. And we think that maybe people don't know about this, so we're trying to spread the word, and also that it'll be a great place to get more information. So it's people that make 70 to 80% of the area median income, which is for one person between it's like $60,000 to $70,000. But anyway, you can go to their website and do initial sort of calculations to see if you qualify. And we've really worked hard we're working really hard to get affordable housing built in Anacortes. And this is an opportunity that we don't want to lose. We really need people in those homes. So tell your friends. I think that's it for me. We will move on to announcements and committee reports. We have the Planning Committee tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Thank you. Right before this meeting, we had our Planning Committee meeting with you and I and staff. Pretty kind of brief meeting. We talked a little bit, well, we started with Habitat for Humanity. The park, they're called Parkside Cottages. And just if anyone wants to look it up, it is skagithabitat.com. And those Parkside Cottages, I know that there's a couple that have been paired with potential homeowners, but there are 8 total. So there are a number of them still available. They are 2-bedroom, 1-bath, a little over 1,000 square feet. They're right across the street from Storvik Park, so they're a great location. So please, these are working individuals that are productive members of our community that otherwise we don't have a lot of options for this type of housing, these smaller units. So please, consider being a homeowner and looking at this program. So they are also doing informational sessions periodically. Beyond that, we talked a little bit, just our shoreline substantial permit is a pretty onerous process to go through. We saw that most recently when it was the Port of Anacortes having to go to Planning Commission and City Council with regards to adding fiber along the Northwest Basin. So there's some other projects that might be coming up, such as the port received some electrification grants. So as simple as adding electricity through a conduit to the end of a dock would trigger these shoreline master plan, or these shoreline substantial permits, excuse me. So fortunately, we've got Mr. Coleman, who is going through the process of talking with state agencies about, in some of these smaller projects, if there's a way to carve out some kind of exemption when it's not disturbing land, it's just kind of adding in this utility, things like that. So we started that conversation. I think that's going to be a further conversation of how we handle those types of permits and what kind of common practices are across other municipalities. And that was really all we talked about. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cleland McGrath. And one thing I did neglect to mention about the Habitat homes is that usually they are designed for families, but these are open to single individuals and couples as well, which isn't always the case. So also casting a little bit wider net there. So do we have any other updates or reports from any other council members tonight? Okay, hearing none, our next item on the agenda is public comments. And we have one person signed up, and that is Linnea McCord. Ms. McCord, are you here or online? There you are. Okay, come on up. And you will have 3 minutes to speak. We have a new system, red light, well, of course, green is first. Yellow means you have 30 seconds left, and then red is when your time is up. So thank you. Name and city of residence, please.
It's on now? Okay. As you know, I am the voice that comes from California that says that some of the policies that are being followed up here lead to consequences that people are not expecting. So I figured that since the fires in LA have changed everything, you can see for yourself that some of the choices and some of the decisions that look really good, especially when you're spending the money, I want you to remember that the money you're spending doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people. And that means that you have responsibilities. So here's what I want to say. Warren Buffett said famously, you only find out who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. Well, the tide's out. It looks like this. That's Pacific Palisades. And there are acres and acres and acres and acres that look like that. The death and destruction so far, 28 known dead, 17,000 structures, tens of thousands. I heard one person today say 250,000 have lost their homes. I don't know if the number's that high, but I have heard people say the most expensive and destructive wildfire in history. Now, here's where you have to understand that when you put politics and money together and you don't do what you are required to do as a government, you end up in real trouble. And this is the deputy fire chief who was paid an outrageous amounts of money, $400,000. She's a DEI hire. And when she was asked whether or not the women could take the men out of the building, she said, well, if a man is in the wrong place and I have to carry him out of a fire, that's a problem for him. Now, how do you think that people feel when they're paying the taxes that they're paying? Some of the highest taxes in the country are in California, like here in Washington. The fire chief said we had 100 fire apparatus, like trucks and other equipment, and it was out of commission because, you see, you spent money on other things instead of what they were supposed to be spending it on. They didn't have the mechanics. They paid $750,000 for a woman who was the water chief, and she knew the reservoir was empty and she knew the hydrants would not work. So this is the first of many lawsuits that have already been filed immediately against Department of Water and Power. And the one thing that I would help you understand is if any of you have an idea that you want to continue in careers and be in politics, you have now changed Los Angeles. It is now not friendly to the people that have done this to their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is anyone else here that has not signed up that would like to speak? I don't see anyone, no one online either. Okay, so we will move on to our consent agenda, items 5A through C. Council.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Young.
I move we approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Young, second by Mr. McDougall to approve consent agenda items 5A through C. Council, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, we are moving to the final and main item on our agenda tonight, and this is the Stormwater Master Plan. And it will be introduced by our Public Works Director, Andrew Rayum.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I'm Andy Rayum, Public Works Director. Good evening. Just for a bit of backstory, so the last time you had a stormwater plan done was 2007, which isn't horrendously old. It's old, but it's not, terribly old. It's time for an update. Now is a good time because it'll inform the comprehensive plan as we go forward with that this year. Just to keep in mind, this is one of 4 different plans we're going to bring your way. So this is version 1.0. So feedback now am I not
Can you
close
bring
enough?
it up a little?
Am I broken up? There we go. This is the first one of 4. So if you guys have feedback on the approach that we've taken, we've kind of threw something together to see how you'd like it. At least I did. So that if you have feedback on how you'd like it to be different for the next 4 that you're going to see, do let me know. I'll let each of the consultants introduce themselves, and then Aaron, our stormwater manager, is going to follow up at the end with the next steps. And I'll be here to answer questions as well.
Thank you.
All right. Is this okay? You can hear me? My name is Terrell Osborne, and I wanted to start by thanking you all for the opportunity to showcase all of our hard work, and I especially want to acknowledge the collaboration with the city staff, the Public Works Department, specifically Andy, Aaron, Sydney, and Robert and Logan, and then also collaborating with some of the other departments, Libby from the Planning Department and Brandon from Operation and Maintenance, and Finance. Rhonda was extremely helpful. So all of the information that we gathered from city staff, and thank you for that. We have about 20 slides today and a lot of information to cover, so we're going to try to move as quickly as we can and still have time for all of your questions. So this is the scope of work that we were tasked with, and we started last spring when the council approved this scope of work. And we've made our way through most of these tasks, and we're right now at the phase where we're gathering public input and sharing our findings with you, and looking forward to getting that prioritization and that input so then we can finalize our final document. That final document is going to be the master plan, which you had a draft copy of in your packet. And this is an overview, these bullets, of what was included or what is included in that master plan. And as Andy noted, it's 20 years of updates that were needed, and a lot of new information. And again, I want to specifically acknowledge Robert Hoxie from the as the GIS manager here, and just such a solid base of information and mapping that was used and made our lives a lot easier. So thanks for that. These are the city's stormwater drainage basins, and all of the stormwater from the city flows into 5 major water bodies, which correspond to 9 distinct drainage basins. Again, all of this mapping came from the city's systems, and they've remained the same. So outside of some minor updates and clarifying some delineations and adding splitting Padilla Bay into south and north, this remained the same from the 2007 planning document that you already had, and makes it consistent for everyone that's using the documents. One of the important parts of the plan was developing a framework for a new stormwater pipe repair and replacement program. And this program will enable the city to make informed risk-based decisions and how they're going to go about maintaining and repairing all the pipes in the city. So this map that you see on the screen helps you quantify every pipe that you have and the total length that you have, and again, so that operation and maintenance can make informed decisions of what the age of these pipes are, the risk of failure, and now has a plan to how they're going to continue to assess these pipes. So right now, this map on the screen shows that you have completed 237 pipes that have been inspected with a small camera that goes through the pipes, so you can see all the defects and any potential breaks or cracks or pipes that may be going right through them we've seen before. And then eventually, this map would be completely filled out with inspections of all of your pipes, so you know all of the risks and quality of your pipes, and can make informed decisions of how you want to go about strategically repairing those. And the ones in red have a poor score and are at high risk, and the ones in green are good to go and don't have any defects. Another key part of our work was the physical and biological stream assessments. So we had biologists and trained staff walk each of your key streams in the city, and these 6 creeks were assessed for their habitat value and also for fish barriers. And from our finding, I'm just going to highlight one of the projects that we thought should be moved to the top of your priority list, and this is Clyde Creek. And the picture on the screen shows some of the erosion and the unstabilized stream banks that is resulting in more trees falling down as their roots are eroded. And a potential project that would have habitat and restoration value as well as just protecting your assets and making sure that water's moving through your city safely. There were a couple more restoration projects that were identified, and they're in the packet as well. I know that's a key interest of some of the council members, but I'm just going to cover this one today. In addition to the habitat assessment and looking for potential projects, we also captured all of your fish barriers. And recently, WashDOT has gone through this process as a result of the 2013 federal court injunction, and they have until 2030 to repair all of their fish barriers. So it's particularly important that cities that have WashDOT highways running through them understand where their fish barriers are, so that if there's any projects, for instance, WashDOT has one planned on Highway 20 for next year, and they're going to put in a fish passable culvert. And so it's important for the city to know where their barriers are relative to that. The important part of our findings is that the city actually has a very low number of barriers. 37 is all that 21 is all that the city owns that are within the city limits, and that relative to all the other cities that we assess, it's a really low number. And we didn't find any that were in immediate vicinity of any of the WashDOT ones that are planned to be repaired. So we didn't add any of those directly to the capital facility plan. but are recommending that there's future studies to make sure that the city really understands those 21 barriers and has a plan to how they want to handle those moving forward.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Young.
Thank you very much. No, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
sort
go
of
for it.
you were on a point of discussion that I wanted a little bit of an elaboration on. When it says number of unknown barriers, what does that mean? Is that just
It's a crossing that we're not able to confirm it's a barrier or not, and it would either need future study or maybe we couldn't access the site, or there's something there that we couldn't say for sure it was a barrier.
Got it. That clears it up for me. What I found particularly interesting about this particular slide was that it was about fish passage barrier inventory. You know, and I think that there's a lot of emphasis these days on trying to make sure that, you know, we can, barriers to fish being able to swim up, salmon habitat, you know, the water quality, everything else is associated with it. For me, this was very important, and I appreciate that you're doing the elaboration that you are on this particular subject. But you were saying that, that given this number futuristically, DOT or one of the other state agencies or federal agencies is hoping to begin to address this issue?
They are, and they're addressing it, and they have until 2030 to complete all of their barriers and remove those barriers regardless. And so a good example is near our avenue and the Happy Valley stream. They're going to replace that culvert under Highway 20, and there will be a mega culvert that's 20 feet wide, and but immediately downstream, Happy Valley goes into a pipe system all the way to the salt water. And so for the city to allow passage, it's unrealistic to think that the city from our avenue is going to replace a piped system. WashDOT will have fixed their barrier because they're required to. But we went through and didn't find any immediate, like if there was a stream and then WashDOT fixed theirs and then the city had a barrier, it would make a lot of sense to put that on your capital facility plan so that you would be immediately opening up new habitat for salmon. And we didn't find any immediate opportunities for the city to capitalize on WashDOT's work.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand it over to Dave, our modeling expert, to summarize the work he did.
Great. Thanks, Terrell. Can you hear me okay? Not too loud? Not okay. So one of the things that we looked at with the modeling was really trying to identify deficiencies in the stormwater system. And for modeling, that really means surcharging and ponding. So ponding or flooding is the water is going to come out of the pipes. Surcharging is the pipes are full. It can't really take any more water, but it's not flooding yet. Right? Those are two things we're looking for. The city has used several different modeling platforms throughout the years, but they were all kind of hidden behind a paywall. Like it was a really expensive modeling platform. And the last one that you had actually is that model is no longer being supported. So we worked with Andy and Aaron to really focus on using the free version of EPA SWIM. This is a modeling platform that we use a lot in the area, and that allows us to, one, create this software, create the model, and then hand it back over to the city with a manual on how to use it. But then also, if there's other consultants that come in, they can use the model as well. We used the city's GIS information to build this model kind of from scratch, and that information was your impervious area, as well as your pervious area, as well as your stormwater network. That impervious area is really kind of your zoning information as far as what buildings you have, roadways, sidewalks, driveways, patios, just trying to find out areas that are going to generate stormwater runoff. We then utilized an effective impervious area scaling factor. Your previous models that you have didn't use that, so you might see some difference in the results in our modeling versus theirs. What this factor does is it allows us to kind of dial down the peak flow based on kind of how connected the system is. And so if you have a ditch and culvert system.
Oh, sorry, the what flow? Dial down the what? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It'll kind of dial down the peak flows.
Oh, peak flow.
Yeah, your peak
okay,
flows.
thank
So
you.
your maximum flow in your pipe. It'll kind of slow that down a little bit. If you just take your pure impervious area, it's going to be a really high value. This effective impervious area approach allows us to kind of dial that down. The way we do it is based on what it's connected to. So if it's connected to a roadway with a culvert, or not a culvert, a ditch and a gutter system, the water is going to really quickly get collected and put into the pipes. If it's a ditch system or if it's just going along the surface, it's going to go slower. So we put a scaling factor around that. It's a common approach that we've been using in the area when we don't have flow monitoring data to kind of calibrate our models. The last thing we did was we used the 25-year, 24-hour design storm. Again, what this represents is a 4% chance that this storm can hit in any year. But this is kind of a standard ecology approach, and so what that did was produced this map that kind of represents the flooding within Anacortes. So the red dots is where we anticipate flooding, and that's water coming out of the system. The yellow dots are where we think the pipes are going to be full, and you need to kind of be careful on how much more water you put into that.
Mayor Pro Tem Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. Fantini?
Just a question. So when I was looking at this, just kind of trying to understand the model and everything, I noticed that the plan states that the city's local rainfall data is significantly less than the maps that the Department of Ecology use. But we didn't, I guess that data was unsuitable because there's not enough 5-minute rain volumes. And I've lived here for a long time, and I know that this area tends to be a very specific weather patterns can be very different than Mount Vernon, Burlington, and whatnot. I'm just curious why we didn't use the city rainfall data as opposed to what the Department of Ecology.
Yeah, so the city's data was collected in kind of daily timestamps, and so it gives us a 24-hour snap of time. The model needs a 5-minute to be able to run that. But what we did do was the ecology gives kind of a bounds of 2.5 inches up to 3 inches. The previous studies have all used the 3-inch contour. We took the information that you had and confirmed that, hey, you're not seeing that type of intensity, and so then we moved it down to use the 2.5-inch one. So we used the data to kind of confirm which range we should be using, but we couldn't run it through the model to use that data as raw data.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But we did adjust it down, so there was an adjustment based off that. Yeah. Let's see. Don't be too shocked by all the red dots kind of in the Guaymas and Fidalgo Bay area. There's a lot of old residential there, steep slopes with 8-inch diameter pipes. 8-inch diameter pipes can't carry that much flow, but when the water comes out, it's going to be on the surface, and it'll get collected once it kind of gets down flatter. And so you most likely won't be hearing any concerns with that. That's kind of a lower priority area. We did identify several high priority areas that the city could look to incorporate into the capital facility planning, and we've handed that over to the team, and we're kind of looking at how to incorporate that. Let's see. The last thing that we took a look at was flow control exemption, and so the way the Department of Ecology looks at flow control exemption is if you're directly discharging to a water body that is exempt, you don't have to do flow control. However, a lot of your flow goes into the piped creek system in Fidalgo Bay. That is not considered an exempt water body right now. And so we worked with the code and kind of determined that the city can request this exemption, that it does meet all the requirements. And the requirement is as soon as the stream goes into a pipe, it stays piped all the way out to the bay. And then it can also pass the peak flow. It's not going to cause flooding within that system. And so that system won't cause flooding. It also won't cause any erosion upstream in the stream itself. And so right now we're making the recommendation that the city can request this exemption. And so we're going through and developing and supporting that document for the city to submit to ecology for that. And then just kind of lastly to kind of wrap up, so what the city has right now is we have a model of the whole city. We're working with them on how they can update that to support development going forward, as well as to identify any key projects that they need to be focused on. So I'm going to pass it over to Jessica to talk about kind of the NPDES permit compliance work.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Dave. I'm going to briefly touch on the new requirements of the NPDES MS4 Phase 2 permit that was issued by the Department of Ecology back. Oh, sorry. I'll start again so you can hear. The Department of Ecology issued the city a new NPDES Phase 2 permit back on August 1st of 2024, and that permit is good for 5 years. There are specific requirements in that permit that the city will have to address, and there's a laundry list here of items, but I'm going to hit on a couple key things. Sorry, The city will need to review and update their tree canopy and policies. This may include updates to the Anacortes Municipal Code. The purpose of doing this exercise is to improve water quality on public properties and figure out where your tree canopy is today and how it will change over time. There's also some new MS4 mapping requirements, and as Terrell mentioned, the mapping that you have is excellent, but there will need to be some updates based on the new permit requirements, taking a look at tributary basins to outfalls, and also looking at delineating basins to your current treatment systems, so you can take a look at how much of the area of the city is currently being treated in public facilities. So there may need to be some updates to comply with the new requirements there as well. There's also a new requirement to look at PCBs, which is a type of chemical that was used in buildings between 1950 and 1980. There's 11 publicly owned buildings that were built in that time, so we'll need to look at some source control measures in terms of maintenance on those buildings, like doing building cleaning and things like that, to try to avoid that water getting into the storm system. In addition, there's some new requirements about public involvement for overburdened communities, which is basically defined as population groups that are more likely to have higher risk or poor health outcomes as a result of environmental impacts. So just doing increased public outreach and trying to engage with those folks you may not always hear from in terms of stormwater management.
Before you move on, could we look back at that for a second?
Sure.
That last slide? Thank you. So a lot of our constituents have talked to us about tree canopy and its importance, and some municipalities have really solid tree plans in place, and we do not. So I was really glad to see this called out, that our program will need to adopt and implement tree canopy goals and policies that consider how our tree canopy can support stormwater management and water quality improvements in all of our surrounding water bodies. So I just want to call that out and highlight that for the public, that this is required. We've been talking about it for a long time, but we actually are required to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. It seems like we need that little nudge. The other thing I would like you to speak briefly to is stormwater management for existing development. Can you give like a brief overview of what that means?
Yeah, so every agency is required to treat a certain amount of impervious area, which is determined in Appendix 12 of the permit. So for the city of Anacortes, it's 2.9 acres of existing impervious area that's not already treated. It'll need to be treated by a certain due date in the permit. But through a recent project on our avenue, the city's already taken care of that requirement and is in compliance. So there won't have to be a new capital project to address the treatment.
So there was an equation that came up with, we just needed to do 2.9 acres more, and we've done that?
It's based on, oh gosh.
You don't have to tell me all the details, but I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of is.
It's so many acres per 50,000 people.
Okay.
I believe. It's like 5 acres per 50,000 people.
Okay.
I think is the.
And then could you briefly touch too on the maintenance standards and street sweeping? Again, just like the briefest overview, since it's on the slide,
Yeah.
Thank you.
So street sweeping, you're required to prioritize like high priority areas. So looking at your city and where you're not doing street sweeping as frequently, but have more water quality issues, you may do more frequent sweeping in those areas. So the city will need to look at their current program and where they need to do more street sweeping. So,
I believe Mr. Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I know you have a group of slides that you're going through, and you're going to give us as much data as we can absorb in the whole process. I guess since I'm seeing this part that has street sweeping, would you elaborate just a little bit on the benefit of street sweeping? I think sometimes the public perception doesn't understand how much the benefit is to what we're attempting to do and why that's so important. So, just if you give us just a little bit about it, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So keeping sediment out of the streams helps habitat, helps your capacity issues. So if you have a street sweeper come up and suck all that dirt off the road, and that helps. It also helps keep leaves off of, like your catch basins and things where the stormwater wants to go into the pipes. So it just helps keep the system running as it should. There's a lot of research being done in the city of Seattle on street sweeping and the specific water quality benefits of it, and it's one of the most effective stormwater best management practices that you can do to help your water quality, and it's fairly inexpensive relative to building capital facilities. So that's kind of the short answer, but there's lots of research if you want to go down the rabbit hole on it.
No, I guess I wanted to emphasize the point about the benefit of street sweeping. We've had some discussions about street sweeping, and other cities are confronted with cars being in the way, whether they're not,
Sure.
does it benefit? And so, the more information we can get out to the public, as well as the people making decisions about what's really important, is what I was emphasizing, and you've answered my question wonderfully. And
good.
My takeaway is that it's critically important, and the research is steadily coming in that it's an important part about what we're attempting to do that may have been a bit underrated, but the more we know about it, the better we can do and the better we can help our water.
Yep, I think of all the requirements in the permit, that is the one that makes the most sense, and you're going to see the most direct water quality benefit immediately if you do it with frequency. So,
Mayor Pro Tem Moulton.
Mr. Fantini.
It's a mouthful to say that. I assume that certain ones of these are in bold because they're maybe higher priorities than others or bigger requirements than others. So I had a question about the overburdened communities, the public involvement for overburdened communities. So that is basically areas where vulnerable populations, are, but also populations that are exposed more to environmental impacts of the things that are going on around them. So I'm just curious what the plan identified as those areas in Anacortes.
we have not identified those specifically. It's a requirement
For us
that's
to
coming
do
up.
that?
It's something to look
Perfect.
forward, yeah.
Thank you.
So the ones in bold here were the ones that we worked with Aaron and Andy on as higher priority permit requirements, for lack of a better term. So that's why I covered those in more detail. But
Great, thank you.
yeah, so that's something you can look in the future for. Any other questions? Okay. Let's see. So this is just an example of some previous work that the city's been doing for MPDS compliance. You'll see a map here. This is from the Fidalgo North Stormwater Management Action Plan that was developed back in 2023. It was a permit requirement to go look at areas for retrofit of water quality. So this map shows some locations of projects. Some of the projects from that plan moved forward into this plan, and I'll be talking about those in a moment. And then this is just an example of your stormwater system GIS mapping. All right, I'm going to touch on the capital facilities projects. There's a map here that shows the 11 projects that were identified from 4 different sources. We looked at the 2007 Stormwater Comp Plan, the Fidalgo North Stormwater Management Action Plan I just mentioned, the city's current 2024 to 2029 capital facilities plan, and then also the stream assessment walks that Terrell talked about. From that, we identified 11 projects that were not completed that needed to move forward. 3 of those, number 5, 8, and 9, were confirmed by H&H modeling. 1, 2, 3, and 7 are habitat-related projects that were confirmed by the stream walks in some cases. And then the green stars are other projects related to like water quality treatment or other flood mitigation type work.
So just to clarify, these are already, all of these are in our capital facilities plan?
They
Is
are,
that right?
some of them are.
Okay, so not
Yeah.
all of them?
Not
Okay,
all of them, yep.
thank you.
And I think I have tables in the back that like show all the sources, but they're also in the plan, I think in chapter 5.
Thank
It'll show
you.
you all the sources. Yep, no problem. So currently, there are 4 capital facility citywide programs. There are 2 that are existing, are ongoing. Number 2 here, number 3, the outfall evaluation and rehabilitation, and then the storm system facility upgrades, restoration, and maintenance. Those are existing programs. And then the first one listed here is the stormwater pipe repair and replacement program, which is new, that Terrell talked about earlier as well. So this program, we're proposing to put into place so the city staff can look at that aging infrastructure, your stormwater pipes, and figure out priorities for repairing those. And then number 4 here is the stormwater capacity systems upgrade project. That'll take some additional projects that Dave and his team identified from the H&H modeling and look at prioritizing how to address those capacity issues as well. And I'm going to hand it back to Terrell.
All right, for context, it's helpful to know where the revenue is coming from to help fund all of this work in place and what we've outlined here in the plan. All of this work is primarily paid through ratepayers with the monthly charge, and this graph just helps you understand where Anacortes stacks up relative to other jurisdictions. The other revenue source is from new connections, when developers want to connect to your stormwater utility, and just wanted to capture, and again, for context, where the city stacks up relative to others. And so also helpful to look at what is planned for 2025. And the 2025 stormwater drainage fund is just over $3 million, and then the column on the right outlines the activities that are planned for that budget, and it's very exciting to see some of the capital facility projects that Jessica covered are already slated for 2025, so you're going to make good headway on this plan already this year, and there's also some of the programs already included in that as well.
So I have a quick question about the caption at the bottom. The storm utility in 2025 has increased 32% over 2024. So the average was 581, and now it hasn't increased 766,000. It's increased to 766,000. Do you see what I'm asking?
Yes, and these numbers and that caption came straight from Rhonda, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer all of it.
Oh,
but
here
Andy's
comes
to the
Mr.
rescue.
Rayum.
Yeah, that's correct. It's just gone up to 766,000 from the 518,000.
To 766.
Yeah.
It hasn't increased. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, we had a couple additional projects this year than usual.
That what?
We have a couple projects this year that are unusual that we added to address issues.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure the language made sense to me. Thank you. So we can adapt that. Yeah.
Mayor Pro
Thanks.
Tem,
Mr. McDougall.
another quick clarifying question on the numbers on this slide. The first 4 rows add up to, well, significantly less than 3.2 million. Is the balance actually that 766K listed in the italicized line below the table? Like those 4 rows add up to about 2.4 million?
Yeah, I can see what you're asking there. I'm not sure. Again, these numbers came from Rhonda, so we'll have to follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe once we know that could be sent to us, just so we have clarity on that.
Yes.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just checking my notes to see if I had the answer, but I will need to follow back up with you on that. So I think that concludes everything we had for you. Oh, a couple more slides, sorry, almost there. Where we're headed, the public outreach survey has been launched. It's live on your city website. It's been posted to your Facebook account and then also emailed out to your listserv, and we're gathering data and hoping everyone in attendance today will also fill out the survey, and that will help us confirm, the stormwater problem areas that we've captured in so far, and also help inform the priorities and where the ratepayers want to see the funding and the efforts prioritized, and also just the level of service that they're looking for from the city's stormwater utility, and again, the priorities.
Mayor Pro Tem Moulton?
Mr. Fantini.
Thanks. That was actually going to be one of my questions, is how we're going to use the public data gathered, because I know that we get a lot of folks that have flooding issues, and I've been directing them to that stormwater survey. My question would be, are we getting a response from that stormwater survey? Are we seeing that people are filling that out? Is that
It just
only
launched.
there's only been, so
The answer was, I think 24 have been filled out so far. So
Okay.
members of the public and council ourselves, we have two, well, some of us have two surveys to fill out.
Yeah.
But most of us probably have one.
I just appreciate the clarification of how that data is going to be used, that it kind of be checked against your model to see, like, one, what the ratepayers want, but also how it lines up with your priorities as well. So again, encouraging people to fill out that survey.
Absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Young.
I know this is not part of the scope of what you guys are doing. I recognize that. But, for me, it leads to additional questions. As a society, what are we really doing? In the sense of what kind of storm runoff are we having? What kind of runoff from tires are a big thing now, discussion about tires and the micro pieces coming off of it. And, I think as a city, one of the things we also will need to look at is how, when that water gets to the bays, is it everything that we put on our lawn? Is it everything that goes in our dishwasher to make sure our dishes are sparkling clean? Those are things that are still part of this as we seek to map out what we can do here to have the best water quality, to affect just the community. But those are bigger issues that I know we need to begin to address, because, one of the things that's always been sort of a pet peeve of my own is that we love a great lawn. We love a sparkling lawn. I love green grass is everything, but it comes at cost. It does. And, sometimes, although I know it's not within the scope of the city itself to make determinations which product is better, which products are not, but, it just seems like there's an opportunity to be less impactful. And in order to be less impactful, there's that education, public outreach that we're talking about showing the public how they can be that way. Because lack of that specificity of what can be done, people, given their short windows of time that they have in order to absorb new data, given the hectic lives, sometimes that is just not enough. So I'm hoping that somehow in all of this that we can come up with solutions saying this fertilizer is better than that one, and if you can, do edible landscape. And, but anyway, I digressed a little bit, but I think as part of this whole thing when we're talking about stormwater and how it's affecting all of us. Thank you. I've gotten off my soapbox.
Thank you, Mr. Young. I think that is really an important facet of this, is what we can do as individuals. And I think when Mr. Esterholt comes up, I know we do have an education program that we do. I think we contract with Skagit County for some of that, and so maybe he can speak briefly to that. But we have a contract with them, and we do it as a county, and there are lots of resources available for that. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, and I think that's a great segue. As you noted, Aaron's going to wrap us up and talk about next steps.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? All right, so prioritize capital facility projects. So we have capital projects, runoff treatment projects, and habitat projects. We recommend pipe size upgrades as a top priority. A question we're going to have is, do we want to use our stormwater utility funding to be used for habitat projects? Development programs. Most of our following programs are not developed or partially developed. So outfalls, we have an inventory of our outfalls. We have their locations, but it's recommended we develop a better understanding of their needs and plan for repair improvements as needed. Pipe repair and replacement. This program currently exists with a camera truck and staffing. We have many needs that the street crews fulfill. Currently, our program is reactive to reports of issues that we typically camera inspect, and if maintenance is needed, we do it at the same time. Stormwater facilities, restorations, and upgrades. The city owns various ponds throughout the city that are in disrepair. We correct issues that are required by the state, but many are not required to be fixed if beyond a certain cost. Fixing them will allow the facility to function as designed and provide protections of natural habitat. Storm system capacity. The new modeling helps the city understand where we will likely have capacity issues in the future. Using this information to develop a strategy to address the capacity issues will create capital projects, but a program effort to know where to prioritize our efforts over time will be needed. Permit compliance. Over the next 2 years, additional stormwater permit requirements will come into effect. These are not small additions to the stormwater program. Staff resources will need to be evaluated and programmed to accomplish this lift in the city stormwater management. The street sweeping, our dead drop date is 2027 to have that implemented. Public input. We do have a survey online. It was posted to Facebook, and in the corner back there I put some sheets so you can get to it. Stormwater utility future. As with any master planning effort, needs of the system sometimes feels daunting and overwhelming. The utility is financially sound and holding. We will need to look at future needs of the utility and what we want to do as a community to better map out what we want to do about the information in this master plan. Development and redevelopment implications. The modeling has proven out that we are eligible to apply for a flow control exemption in the downtown area. Ecology will be the one that will have to approve that. If we don't get the exemption in development in the downtown area, we'll be required detention vaults that will consume buildable land. The pipe will need to be upsized in the future, and there are mechanisms available to set up special surcharge areas to pay for all or part of these costs to upsize the pipes. I guess that's the end of it. So, questions?
Council.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Young.
Thank you. No, I think I've learned a lot tonight. Just the extra elaborations on the details. You know, again, the street sweeping was a big topic, and I've got greater clarity to its importance to this process. What I also appreciate about the department and the work that's being done is that, you know, at several events I've seen the department out there, and I got a chance to come over to the table and have a great conversation about water and you know, just how it's affected the streets and how important it is. And what I appreciated about it was that it, as a legislative body, it helped me to also push towards some of the priorities that are necessary. Oftentimes we look at other things that we give a priority to because they're big, you know, they're also incredibly important. But this is just as important. It's, you know, this symbiotic relationship with all of the things that we hold near and dear about why we love here is connected to that. And we can't ignore it. And so we have to begin to address it. And whether that means, and that means deciding how we use the little resources we do have. How can we maximize that? And how can we move it forward? So, again, this has been very helpful. I see we got work to do for sure. And what I also appreciated about the presentation, Aaron in particular, was the honesty about asking council the question, what are we really going to do? Because it's a big item, and it's not going away. And, whether that's outreach, which I think you guys have done a great job. There's always room for improving on that, but I'm glad under your leadership that the department is really working incredibly hard. I am impressed by that, I really am. And also, I personally know of an instance or two or three that the department have gone over and beyond to try to explain to the constituents out in the community what's taking place. Storm and water runoff is a big deal. And, and I know that sometimes you guys have leaped over a couple of boxes and ravines and came back out just to satisfy people within the city. And I appreciate that. Because what it also instills and shows our community is that our departments are serious about what issues you bring up to us, that we want to resolve them as best as we can, and that we're trying the best that we can to use the resources we do have. We don't have unlimited money in order to make the best possible decisions that we can do here within our city. And so, thank you, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome, Mr. Young. Mr. Fantini. Oh, sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Moulton, thank you. One of the things that's great about living in Anacortes is our city and councils present and past, there are a lot of measures that are already in place to protect streams, wetlands, habitats. And what I appreciated a lot about this plan is that it was, and again, it's 257 pages with all of this. So I haven't read every little bit yet, but I went to what's important to me and the highlights to me, and that habitat, preserving creeks, that's extremely important to me. And what I appreciated about the plan is that it was clear that the areas that were outlined, that somebody had been out there. It's not necessarily just a bunch of people looking things up online. Like there's some definite real life examinations that are happening of these places, like the stuff on Little Cranberry. I found that really helpful. That's a really special place to a lot of people, and so to hear that is a priority to keep an eye on and address. And again, just living in Anacortes and having all of those different, whether it's the wetland buffers, all that in place and cited in the back as resources that were used in coming up with this plan is great. I did have kind of a question. One thing, and I've only been on council for a year, so maybe this is an obvious question to others, but we get this great plan, and the onus does come on us though, on council and city to execute the plan. And I guess my question would be, once we have it and we do all of our inspections, that will then come back to us for appropriating funds, looking for grants. Is that more or less how that? I was very excited about a lot of what I saw, and I just want to make sure that we're able to put it into practice. And I just was curious if you could.
Sure. So for tonight, we just wanted to get discussion and feedback from council. We are going to have it come back after we get public comment and update the plan to have you approve it. Now, the approval of the plan just makes the plan effective. It doesn't mean you just executed $80 million of stuff. And so the actual cost comes when we go to the budgeting process, and you'll hear from me that, like, here's what we're proposing. I'll tell you whether it's all going to come from the plan. How fast we try to go after the plan goals is kind of where you want to go. Like, we could take 100 years to do what's in that plan. We could take 20. It just depends on kind of, but as a council, you want to look at, like, well, what's the overall cost of living here? I mean, we could have the highest utility rate and stormwater rate in the country, and, you know, do we really want to do that, or do we want to, you know, be even keeled and kind of look at across all the different things that the city and the community want and try to prioritize those? So it is a balancing act. There isn't, I don't know if that's a wishy-washy answer, other than the executing the plan or approving the plan just puts it into effect, and it gives us direction that that's the plan that you guys want to follow. How fast we get at that plan and how much we spend per year is definitely part of the budgeting process.
Okay, and then just one quick follow-up question. When looking at and inspecting all of the pipes and everything, because it's, you know, I looked at that map and there's still a lot to go. How do we prioritize which ones to look at first, like to inspect?
I've seen different ways. Sometimes you just go east to west or north to south. There's other places where you prioritize and say, well, if this pipe was going to fail, the consequences are huge. So you can prioritize those and try to do those first. I can tell you from firsthand experience, cammering a stormwater system is not trivial. It's a lot of work because you only can go down one stick of pipe. Sewer pipe, you can cruise along for a long period of time, but a stormwater pipe is from catch basin to catch basin. So you got to pull the thing in and out and in and out. So it's very time consuming. I wasn't too surprised to see how far we've gotten with camera, because we don't have a dedicated stormwater crew anyways, but they do use it and they go out there and they check stuff kind of on a responsive basis instead of a proactive basis. And if we want to switch to proactive, that's definitely something that you'll have to, I guess, put some faith in me to look at. Like, this is our 10 people. They got to do wastewater, stormwater, streets, and like how much we think we can handle with that, or if we want to propose an FTE, we could do that. But again, that would be in the budgeting process. We'll get at all this stuff as we move along. It's just, like I said, it's just a matter of how fast.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a really thorough, digestible report. So thank you for this, at least first version of the plan. It was something that I think most folks in the community could at least kind of get through and understand and appreciate. I mean, the irony is, like, if stormwater is going well and the plan is working, no one cares about it, right? No one notices it, and that's the goal. So I just really, 2007 was kind of a long time ago. So having an updated inventory of projects and identified issues, I think, is really helpful for us when we are talking about planning for the future, especially when we are talking about increasing. I mean, we're not kind of expanding our boundaries, so we're increasing density, which exaggerates the impact that this will have when it does, if and when it does have failure points. So I'm excited to kind of see what those projects are geographically in relation to the different areas of the community and where we expect or see that development happening, or the increased density happening. One question I did have, if you can speak to it, is you mentioned the downtown core and needing an exemption from ecology. Can you elaborate on that? Is there a timeline when that would need to happen, or triggered based on development? I'm just kind of curious about what that entails.
Okay, so the map there, so those yellow portions of those, so those are creeks, and the yellow portion is where the creek flow is piped. And so to have the density that we want in the downtown area and the affordability, you really want your maximum footprint for the buildable land. Well, if we say you have to put a detention vault there, that just took typically about 10% of the buildable land. And so to avoid that, what we want to do is to get an exemption from ecology that says you don't have to build detention pipes here, because we don't think we need to. And we have modeling to back it up, as well as the pipes are, they're not super old. We're not seeing an issue right now with flooding. So the idea is to get the official exemption from the state, but that also means we need to probably upsize those pipes for the future condition. So if we really do have all this density built downtown and there's very little, is mostly almost 100% impervious, let's say, so any rainwater hits it's going to go right into the storm system, we're going to want those pipes bigger over time. So what we're proposing to do is to take the modeling results, we're going to submit to the Department of Ecology and say, hey, we want this area to be flow exempt. There's piped streams, or piped stream flow, sorry. It's not really a piped stream. You want to be very careful about that because then you start daylighting and then you want to talk about taking buildable land away. But they've been in these pipes for over a century. There's no Andromeda's fish using them. I can go on and on and on. But it makes a lot of sense to make sure that we're on the right page with ecology, that we're going to have this to be a flow exempt area, and that we're going to make the pipes large enough to carry the flows out of the area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
very helpful. And I just think that, every so often we hear about projects, and I think there was something in the West Fifth Streets recently when we talked about habitat, that all of a sudden the capacity needed such an upgrade that it was going to cost more than the project itself. So this is exciting that we're proactively trying to identify and come up with plans so that we can continue to have thoughtful development. So thank you. Yeah, that was a great explanation.
Yeah, one of the things for developers too that'll be helpful is that if we'll know for a fact if they go to buy the land, that it should have an easy way to go look at the maps and see if the pipes have capacity. And if they don't, they need to come in and talk to us before they buy the land to make sure they know kind of what they're getting into from an infrastructure standpoint. But we can't do that right now, which in the future we will be able to do with the plan.
Thank you. This has been great, and I appreciate Ms. Osborne calling out the different city departments that are involved, because it's planning, it's finance, it's public works, it's parks, and also Mr. Young alluded to, it affects all of us. Stormwater affects everything in the city, so it really is a big picture that we need to look at. So I have I have a general question kind of to both Mr. Fantini's and Mr. Young's points about the actionability of the plan. So I understand we want as much public engagement as possible. That's great. But then I think we do, occasionally plans happen and they do kind of sit on a shelf. And I would really like to schedule a council work session at a time to be determined where we look at this. Because the things that I'm looking at that I haven't thought would be part of this process before are some of the CFP, the restoration projects that are possible, like the Cranberry Creek restoration and habitat improvement, the Clyde Creek stream bank, clearly from the presentation that rose to the top. I think that's one, anyway, so I have my ideas of what I think, are great. And then Ace of Hearts, we've been talking about daylighting that for years with the Parks Department, and I know it costs a ton of money. So, we have those, like Mr. Esterholt was saying, do we use stormwater dollars for habitat? And I would say yes, of course. But so I think that there is a matrix sort of near the bottom on one of the appendices, and it lists some of these projects with a number of dollar signs, like kind of like restaurant reviews. Most of them are like 2 and 3 and 4. So I think that this is something that we can really get behind and that we can really work on and be dedicated to as a council and as a community. So I'd love an update, in the near future, and we can figure out when we can really dig into this and make these things happen.
When we bring it back for adoption, we'll then plan out when that'll be as a group and schedule it.
That sounds great. And then I have one specific question about stormwater pipe repair and replacement prioritization. We're talking about paving South Commercial Avenue, and I'm wondering if I know we talk about water pipes. I can't remember, is it stormwater, is it wastewater, is it regular drinking water? So would we look at this before we go out and pave? Would that be part of the analysis of stormwater pipes?
So we're just trying to pave South Commercial. Looking at the water main, anyways, we'll get to the water main thing at a different time. We don't have a lot of concern about stormwater in the system in commercial avenues, South Commercial to be specific. But we should, in the future. But right now, it's not looking like it's going to be a flooding issue. So we were just going to pave it.
Okay, in regards to that, so that's a whole nother conversation beyond just stormwater, but I thought, that this would be a time to ask about the stormwater there, so thank you.
Yeah, it'd be nice in the kind of the future vision that we need to come back and talk to you about South Commercial and what is it that we want to do that maybe isn't $65+ million, but something a little more that we can get behind and really fund. One of those things would be to retrofit it with stormwater treatment to clean up the water off of commercial before it gets to the bay. But right now, all we're trying to do is just pave it, get some bike lanes, and fix all the ADA issues as soon as possible. I did find out for South Commercial or just commercial in general, we probably only have about 10 to 15 years of the pavement actually being decent before it starts falling apart again. I didn't realize that it was that wore out that fast. So the time stamp on this project and how long it's going to last isn't 20. I think I said 20, 25 years. And I don't. From talking to Washington, I don't think it'll take that long before we need to do the next thing to South Commercial as in regards to the road.
You mean if we didn't do it now, it wouldn't last 20, 25 years, it would last like 10 to 15 years? Is that what you said?
No, like once we repave the whole thing with fresh asphalt,
Right,
it's
right.
about 10 to 15 years tops before it starts falling apart again.
Oh, the new
Yeah,
pavement.
that's what, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that update.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. But I mean, it's a lot of vehicles per day, so.
Okay, great. Well, council, any more questions? Mr. Fantini?
I didn't know, you're probably getting ready to call for it, but this item did have an asterisk on it on the agenda, which means it is open for public comment, should anyone here.
Thank you for pointing that out. Would anyone in the audience like to come up and talk about this, comment on this presentation? Okay, anyone online? No? Thank you. Any more council comments?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Hubick, hello.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. I wanted to point out and say thank you for providing real data in here. Table 3.2 in the draft plan. I did a little looking around, and I think that it's really, really smart to have this plan look out, 75 years. The chart on that page looks at the stormwater flow coming in now and then coming in 75 years from now, what things could look like up to 2100. So I think one of the things that we're really good at is looking at our CFP and our plan for 10 years ahead. So it's quite refreshing to see scientific data looking at climate change, telling us what the system may need to look like well after most of us here at the table are gone. So big congratulations and a thank you to the scientists and the science behind this. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Ms. Hubick. Well, if that is everything that everyone wants to say tonight, for the good of the order, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.